All right, call the meeting to order. Commissioner Dinger.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Weiss, second by Dinger. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. This time we'll open the meeting up for any public comment. Does anyone wish to address the commission on any topic that isn't on our agenda? Online, on the phone? Nobody in the room? We will move on. First up, Kelly Weaver, Girl South Dakota. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
Morning.
With me, Rachel Cramen, who is also a Rural
Hi,
South
Rachel.
Dakota employee, and that she would have the experience of coming and seeing you all. So, all right.
Good.
Well, I hand this down. There's one for each of you, and then I'm going to leave this also. We're in the process of every 3 years, Rural South Dakota does a community needs assessment, and so we're in the process of collecting survey results, so we can hear from the communities what their needs are. So if there'd be a place maybe that these could be hung in the courthouse, I'll leave those with you, and got a QR code there, really simple, easy, just a few questions, doesn't take long. And then just some brochure and information about Governor's House program. And so we'll kind of talk through what we have been up to in 2024. So, I know Kyler's new on the commission since we were here last. I don't know how familiar you are with Grow South Dakota.
I actually went to one of your, no, that was, I've done a little bit with you guys.
Okay, great.
A couple of things.
So, Grow South Dakota works in the area of community housing and economic development. We do business services through lending and technical assistance, and individual services with weatherization, home mortgage loans, financial counseling, home buyer education. We've added a digital industry program over the last couple of years, which I know we talked about quite a bit last year. And so that's kind of the general basis of services that we cover. Depending on the program, we're anywhere from a 10-county footprint to a statewide footprint. So some of the programs are statewide, and some are just in our initial 10 counties. So it just kind of depends what that's going on. But this is an overcap of Brown County activity in 2024. $16.7 million have been invested in Brown County over that period of time, and we'll kind of go through that list. The Big Idea Competition is hosted here in Aberdeen every year. We had 57 students that were from Brown County. We had one finalist team from Aberdeen Central this year. And their idea was a daycare. So they're really honed in on what the local needs are in their communities, a lot of those students that are competing. Homeownership education, we had 11 recipients. That's something that's open to anybody that's looking to, go from that renter to the buyer. It's a great way to understand all the responsibilities as being a homeowner. You don't have to be getting a certain type of loan or meet an income qualification or anything. Anybody can access that, and there's online options as well as in-person options for that home buyer education. We have some board members here in Brown County. Stan Jung, Curry Keel, Beth Smith, and Pat Towson are on our NESDEC board, and the committee finance is Daryl Ebach. NESDEC, NESCAP, or individual organizations underneath the GROW umbrella. There's actually 3 legal entities, so when you see those acronyms, they were some of the original organizations. NESCAP was the very first, started in 1965. NESDEC started about 10 years later. That's how the business lending arm started. And then Grow South Dakota came in about 2007, and we just kind of branded everything as Grow just because it's simpler, but some people remember the old acronyms are confused, so that's all kind of one big organization. One big happy family.
Yep.
Trying to keep the balls in the air. In Brown County, we do have an office here in Aberdeen. That's where Rachel and I work. In 2024, we had 3 full-time staff and 1 part-time staff. And we have the office that we rent from the Aberdeen Development Corporation. So we locked up when we left today. Nobody there. So just in some of the individual programs, you can see that we have active business loans, 36 of those, about $3.8 million invested in those businesses. active housing loans, 278. We do, had a down payment assistance program that is currently not operating, that has not been funded. So a lot of those loans were probably down payment assistance loans, but we still have a first-time home buyer loan, which is really great for those loans in rural counties where they can't meet the requirements of the bank for appraisal or things of that nature. So it's a way to get them started in that housing program and getting into a home. Emergency services, this is one of the areas where the county funds get used, and then there's different areas where there's assistance needed, where you don't maybe have a specific program to fit that. We had 232 recipients, and then 114 recipients under the water. So this is where, if somebody's, maybe gonna get evicted because they're behind on a bill for some reason, they can get some assistance to make sure that they're not losing their home in the process, and they can get back on track. Home improvement loans, and then our weatherization and furnace program there. And then we do market the Governor's House in South Dakota. Last year, 3 houses. This year, I think we're up to like 11 houses.
Really?
That program still has got a lot of traction. They up their costs in about April, May every year. So I think there's a little bit of rush to get in and they have been doing it a little bit quicker on the turnaround, maybe from 3 years to get a house to 2 years to get a house. It's still kind of long, but that program does still exist, and they've added what they call a Dakotaplex program. So generally, the Governor's House is to an individual to buy that house and live in that house, but the Dakotaplex program allows it to be used as a rental. So development corporations, nonprofit organizations, legal entities or government entities can buy a two-bedroom or three-bedroom house, and we're kind of designed to maybe put a few of them together in an area, but they can be just individual on a lot that then can be rented to an income-qualified family. So that does get added, and that may also be why some of those numbers are up. And then the Small Business Development Center program, that is the program that Rachel and I work in, and the business services side. So 103 different clients, that's somebody we spent significant time with. That doesn't count the phone calls here and there about, how do I do this or where do I go for that type of thing. And then investments made in businesses that did receive investment during that year, almost $7.5 million. So it's great, great to be able to work with our local businesses and just our startups. We can work with anybody from starting a part-time gig on top of my day job, or on buying a business. We see a lot more business transitions now with the baby boomer generation moving on to their next phase of life, and so that is a continued, and that's a big lift for people. That's a big process. It seems like it should be easier than starting a business, but actually I think it's harder than starting a business. So we're happy to walk with people through that process as well. And then we do business training also through SBDC and through Grove. On the digital literacy side, we've been doing cybersecurity training. We've been doing some training on Canva for people that want to learn how to use that product. QuickBooks, as we've always done. So that's kind of things that we've been up to. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I think Lynn has the paperwork, right, already. I do have a copy here if need be, but for the $5,000 request for funding for this year.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the Grove people? You're literally our first hearing, so you're the first one making the pitch.
All right, do we need to come back at the end as a reminder? We've set the bar, just so you know.
No, it looks like you've got another busy year and you do good things, so.
Yeah, I've worked for the agency for 25 years. Rachel's not even here a year, but I think, I won't speak for her, but it's just such a rewarding place to be, because there's so many different things we can do to help people, and sometimes you're working with people in their most vulnerable moments, and, to be able to give them some hope to, keep moving forward and improve their station in life. That's what the mission of the agency is really all about. So.
That-
We say we're the best kept secret, but we don't want to be secret. We don't want to be secret. We want everybody to know that we exist and that we help and we're here every step of the way.
I was gonna say, we did your homeownership education, I believe, when we bought our first house.
Okay.
It was immensely helpful. It'd be nice to see that number to everybody that buys a house for the
Mhm.
first time.
Right.
Because there's just a lot of things that young people don't know.
All right, any other questions, comments on your?
Well done.
Thank you very much.
All right.
We appreciate your time.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Presentation.
You
Thank
bet.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Keep up the good work.
You can open the door up.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, next up, we've got Tim Hannigan, Aberdeen Development Corporation CEO. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for having us. I'll pass the microphone. All right, so I'll start with thank you guys. Thanks for having us, and appreciate the continued support in the past and ongoing, and appreciate Mike coming to our meetings, and so there's some of this will probably be a repeat for him, but nonetheless, good to talk through. So, we value this partnership, and really, the ADC, for those that don't know, we really have four main pillars, and that is to grow and recruit new businesses, retain and expand our existing businesses, entrepreneur support, and advocacy. And so we work under those four pillars, and so this last year has been very busy. Just going to touch on a few of those things that we've accomplished. From a new business recruitment standpoint, we have Smack Pet Foods getting built out right now. They're hopefully going into production within the next few months. So it's really exciting to see that building get turned around really quick and put back into use. So as part of that, we use our RLF funds and so request for loans to get them here. And so as part of our war chest, those funds we have total between two different funds, one from the city, one from the ADC, internally developed. Excuse me. Have about $6.8 million that are almost completely fully deployed to businesses, revolving, helping them grow, expand, and ultimately get new jobs to Aberdeen, high-paying jobs. So we want to continue that progress. Along those lines, we've done a lot of business, just consulting with new businesses, inquiries, requests for information. Anybody that's asking for information, we provide it. We don't always incentivize businesses because we don't need to. It's not really our mission, but we will provide information and consult. So things like Tropical Smoothie, we work with site selectors. We do respond to RFIs from the state level as well, and so we've had some good ones here recently in 2025 that we've been able to reply to, and hopefully get those very competitive, but hopefully get some traction there. From a retention and expansion standpoint, we've done hundreds of visits with businesses internal to the community. I think Rich alone is up over 80 this year already, 90 this year. So, and from there we learn, what are the trends, what are the things that are affecting our businesses, and how can we, as the ADC, help, whether that's workforce development, education, succession planning, connecting them with different resources, just like Grow that was just here. That sometimes is what we do. So sometimes that connection, childcare, we're very involved in that, kind of turning the pages with the Early Learner Society, taking that over, but help getting that off the ground, and then just general consulting with businesses. From an entrepreneurship standpoint, very connected with the Northern Innovation Startup Center. It's a kind of a joint project. We actually share a person, and we're helping to raise funds for them as well. And so they have done wonderful things. I don't know if anybody watched the city council meeting last night. Steve was there presenting, and she'll do a much better job than I will, touting all the things that she does. But wonderful program, idea to market participants, I think is around that 20 to 25. So those are people taking their idea, and we're trying to get them to market to help them to get their business off the ground. We do have a business pitch competition coming up July 30th. Everyone is welcome to attend. It's free to the public. We have 5 finalists, and it's going to be a really good event. Those 5 finalists are wonderful, very diverse group, so it's going to be a really exciting event to see. So we're going to continue to try to support entrepreneurs in that way. In addition, B has announced that their summit is September 24th. So again, another day to put on the calendar to attend. That'll be really exciting. exciting event. Last year's event, I think, had almost 800 people attending, either live or virtually, so we're looking to top that number again this year. And then we do touch on the advocacy piece, and so we do have a lobbyist, and so we're in Pierre. Mostly it's from a state standpoint, just advocating for business-friendly legislation so that we can continue to grow responsibly and have a good environment for our businesses. For this for a little bit about the future, our main initiatives. Currently, we have one property available in our East Industrial Park, and we have one property along Highway 12 is all. And so that is very limiting. When we reply to these RFIs and we're talking with site selectors, we don't control the land, and there's a saying we always use, no product, no project. And so our main goal over the next few years is to build out our portfolio of land. And that's what's in your packet. You'll see 2 industrial parks that we are working to get going. One would be the Roosevelt Business Park along Roosevelt and Milwaukee. That'll be geared more towards the light industrial businesses, similar to what's been going into the East Industrial Park now. But this will be a really awesome spot for that. It's a cornfield kind of in the middle of Aberdeen, so it'd be a great location to see filled in with business activity. And the other one will be the Rivet Business Park, just north of 3M. That one's going to be geared more for the larger industrial setting, so you could think of another business. What we'd love to see another 3M or something like that. But more realistically, it'll probably get parceled out, and you'll see 3 to 5 businesses that need that 20-acre range. Is kind of the plan for it. So that's why we don't have a real detailed plan yet, because as we get businesses interested in that larger footprint, we'll lay it out at that point. So, and then continuing funding for the NSIC is another big angle for us as well. They have potential to apply for another grant, and again, Bee's the one doing most of the work there. We're here helping to support her to keep her funded, and so she can continue to do the great work that she's doing. So she can speak better to the grant purposes, but in collaboration, we're working to help raise the funds for her. So that's the request of $25,000 to help us carry out those initiatives and carry on the mission of the ADC. So with that, I'll turn it over and ask if you have any questions.
Anyone have any questions of these gentlemen?
Do you guys have any timeline on the North Roosevelt, the Roosevelt Business Park?
Yeah, so there's a lot of balls in the air. We are in kind of the silent phase of capital campaign, working with banks for financing. We have multiple grants out, waiting for official word there. There'll be a TIF coming to the through the county and then through the city council, over the next month. So all those pieces have to fall in place, but we're hopeful that we can get all that done and get to construction in the spring, once weather permits. That would be our ideal timeline.
So you have some businesses committed there already?
We have a letter of intent on 2 of the properties, and we've had conversations with other businesses that are interested but need to see it, that it's going to go through. They need to make sure that it's going to be a real project before they would be willing to sign any kind of purchase agreement and those kind of things. I will mention that we're working closely with the city. The city's public works building is going to go, it's not shown on the picture, but just to the right is where they're putting their public works building. So very collaborative effort there, and they've been really good to work with.
You guys would get Industrial Avenue to go through farther into the west end.
It would connect all the way from Roosevelt to what it is now, and then also ultimately to Brown County 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
What's going on?
Good.
That's good. Keeps us out of trouble.
You bet.
Lots of moving pieces.
Exactly.
Out of trouble and moving forward.
Thanks for the update.
All right.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Being here. Thanks for the names and faces too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good to
yeah.
see some of the-
Yep.
Yep.
That always helps. Next up, Marla Keys, Area 4 Senior Nutrition Executive Director. Good morning.
Good morning, how's everybody?
Good, how are you?
Good. They say the fastest way to a man's heart is through his belly, so can we have you come for lunch? We'd like to serve you lunch at our kitchen. and so that you could all see the kitchen and the space that we're occupying in Brown County. We do rent from the city in the Washington Street gym. The northwest corner is our kitchen, and then there is a stage in between the kitchen and then a dining area, and that stage is unusable. This past year, our lease was revised to remind that we really should not be accessing that wood floor. We cannot use the wood floor at all. They recommend no street shoes. And so all of our volunteers and all of our deliveries are having to go through the alley up 3 cement stairs with no railing. We were successful in getting a railing put in, but our average volunteer is 76 in Aberdeen for our program. So that is treacherous to access that. We would really love to see us be able to tear that the stage area out and to be able to have the whole west side of that building. The city has agreed. We would just need to come up with the funding. So I do have the possibility of a grant. You do have to be in contract with Department of Human Services to qualify. Building capacity and proof of building capacity and enrichment of services to someone who is in contract with the aging population of South Dakota is required, so we would qualify, and there's $250,000 to $750,000 available through that grant. So I do plan to apply for that, but I think it would be helpful if you guys could see the space that we're operating in and then see the magic that they're able to produce through a really healthy, yummy meal as a result of that space that they're operating in. I did put some statistics together. Aberdeen is currently feeding about 5,100 people a month. And our Hecla site is feeding on average 265 a month. And Groton, the Red Horse Inn, who we contract with, is feeding anywhere from 430 to 450 a month. That Red Horse Inn is under new ownership in Groton, so that's been a positive change for us. However, the Groton community on average is, we have that suggested donation price of $5, which obviously helps our bottom line because our grant with the Department of Human Services only covers 40% of our operating budget. So we are highly dependent on county, city, and other sources of help. And the Groton community is currently only donating on average $2.57 a meal for out of $5. So where Aberdeen is at like $3.98 to $4.12 usually, and Hecla is $5. Some other statistics that I think you might find important. For some reason, the Hecla area would like to see the program more as DoorDash or Burger King, where you get it your way. And that's been challenging for us because under that grant contract, we have to follow the dietitian's guidelines. And so the Hecla community would really rather not have rice and not have to have any legumes and not have to have any beans. So we are challenged a little bit up there. We do not get any city support from the city of Hecla. However, they charge us $35 to rent our space in that building. So we are very, very grateful for that. So it's almost an in-kind help, if you will, but we do pay all of our utilities there.
What building is that in Hecla?
In the community building where the city office is. There's that kitchen there, and then all of our equipment is in there. Yeah, and like I said, $35 is pretty hard to beat plus utilities. But
that's a nice little facility there.
It is very nice. We're having a hard time getting congregate dining, which we get funded a little bit stronger for. We can apply for extra funding for congregate dining now, and the folks there want to pick up and go. They do not want to sit down and eat. Aberdeen, like I said, has about 5,100 people being served. Like I said, we're receiving $3 to low $4 a meal on average. Our biggest concern in Aberdeen is the amount of resources and other help that we're having to offer people that we're serving. The food insecurity and housing is dire for these folks on limited budgets. They're living in places that they've been renting for 20 years. We serve a large population that does not have any familial network, and so we are doing a lot of that with our services. We're often the only people they see outside of maybe somebody in the building if they step out for a cigarette or to get their mail. We're the only people they see in a day, and so we're doing a lot of referrals to GROW, to Department of Social Services for energy assistance, SNAP, things like that. And that's the only way that we actually are going to get paid is if we make that referral for SNAP, so that their food stamps are able to pay for their meal. And we're grateful we can accept that, because then we're at least getting something. But these buildings, these homes, or homes that have been converted into apartments, are just dilapidated. The steps are, I mentioned our average age of our volunteer is navigating that in snow half the year to get to these people, and it's sad. It's sad the conditions that they're living in. And so in our nonprofit group, we have been working a little bit with some people on talking about standards for landlords and building owners, and bringing something like that to the community. We've been talking a lot about that. So we're hoping that we can continue to offer resources to the Aberdeen people more especially. Groton, like I said, they are under new ownership. At the cafe that we contract with there, we pay them per meal to provide meals for the program. Great cooperation, however, with such a low pay, it's really hard for us to pay the restaurant a decent wage to stay engaged, so I don't know how long the new owner will be cooperative. He's not from the area, and so he initially said he was buying it for the use of the hotel, because he does a lot of contract work with Agtegra and places like that, and so he needs the hotel for his drivers to stay in, and he was renting more than half of the hotel, more than half of the year. So he's like, why don't I just buy it when it was for sale? Yeah. Which was great. And he said, so I'll just keep the nutrition program, but I'm going to close the restaurant. Their hope is to reopen it, but I am afraid in the meantime we might lose the contract. And we get zero support from the city. We've never gotten a check of support from any business either. And we've solicited numerous times in the Groton community. So really, truly, the support we're getting is from a bank in Hecla and then businesses in Aberdeen for Brown County. So we really are really dependent on our help from you guys. I know I did increase my ask again, and one of the reasons maybe that I did is because we do have 3 other counties that serve 1/3 of what Brown County does, and they are giving us more support than you guys are currently. And I know that asking for increases in large amounts every year is a huge ask, so I've just been patiently doing that, and then also writing some other grants. And I do want to share with you that I am doing that work also. We were blessed locally, no money involved, but blessed locally with the opportunity for some exposure by getting the Abby Award for the Heart of Service Impact Award, which was great. And then we did also win and got televised coverage for the Touchstone Energy Who Powers You Cash Award. And I had just lost my dad. It was kind of a sympathy, empathy, like, God, I could just really use this boost. And so I sat down and the words were flowing and I wrote the grant. We ended up not even putting that into our budget. We just gave our staff the money in their paychecks. We just split the $3,000 amongst the 50 people and gave everybody $75. We never are able to do things like that, and so to have just written that while I was on bereavement leave and then be awarded it was pretty special. So, but you can watch the acceptance speech and then our nomination on KELOLAND Living if you'd like to watch that. We applied for our first United Way grant. Our operation has never been affiliated with United Way, and in the past year and a half I've started to build that relationship and then did apply. We met with the allocation team in May, and they came in and toured the kitchen, and we did a mock pack out of our delivery service. About 60% of Aberdeen people that we feed are home delivery. So we did a mock pack-out service so they could see what it's like to get the meal out the door, out of the oven and out the door in the 7 to 10 routes that we have to do a day to meet needs. And so that was kind of fun to do with them, and they were able to see our reality, which is great. We also just recently were told that we received the POET grant that we've never received before. And then this year we also received 6 community development grants that we have not received either, that I wrote in and asked for. So we are receiving support that we weren't receiving before, which is wonderful, because as we all know, insurances went up and cost of food is up, and the wages are continue to be a challenge of the nonprofit. We just aren't as competitive as we wish we were. So I realize I am asking for an increase, however, I think you can see the need is there. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Just curious, do you get any kind of allocation from the city or anybody?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Much better now under the current management.
Okay. Good.
But our relationship has changed a little bit, and I've only been in new 2 years, but there was some conflict prior between the previous executive director and the city manager. So, to be honest, we're working on building that relationship back, and, you know, I'm just trying to prove to them I'm willing to listen. I can have a conversation, and we can talk through this. But the area we rent needed a lot of work, and it was not being done. And then we got written up by the state when they came in, and I just said, you guys, this is the stuff we're talking about. This is the attention we need. And I realize you give us the space for a very decent amount of rent, but we have to be able to maintain the facility also. So there is a goal for, and there have been improvements made to be able to not be written up this next visit. So
I don't
they
mind-
were minor
Yeah.
infractions, but.
Well, I don't mind saying I've had an opportunity to be a little more familiar with, you know, some of the challenges that you've had and the way that you've addressed them since you've been involved in the organization, and you're very well impressed
Thank
with
you.
the things that you do, with the things, you know, you're required to do and trying to communicate and coordinate, you know, with staff and facilities, the things that you talked about, challenges, you know, with partnerships with the different communities to be able to, you know, have locations to work with that, and then, you know, the accountability that you have to have in order to document things for reimbursement, because you gotta pay the bills in order to do this. So, you know, you spend so much time and energy logistically trying to make it happen, but you also have this whole other animal, you know, to try and figure out
'cause
how
a lot
you're
of the
gonna
grants-
fund it all.
Exactly. A lot of the grants come with requirements that we do certain things with the money, and that we report on what we've done with the money. So that's what a lot of my time is. So in addition to relationship building, yes, I'm doing a lot of documenting and reporting back, so while continuing to search for more grants.
So I don't mind saying I'm very impressed and, very, you know, impressed by, you know, the way that you've handled all of that.
Thank you.
And the way that you're, you know, positioning the organization to do the good things that you're doing and make it sustainable going on. And it's a day-to-day challenge, and so I appreciate what you do, and I'm
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
very impressed by, you know, what you do.
Thank you. So do you want to talk about lunch later and get back to me so that you guys could come and see the facility, get through your budget hearings here, and
Yeah, do you have lunch every day that's
we do
available?
Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just stop in and give you $5 and have lunch, right?
Well, what I would love to see you do is come be able to see the pack-out
Yep.
process, how tight the kitchen's operating,
Sure.
and then we can grab lunch and go to the other end of the building to the office area that we have there, and so we can visit and eat lunch after
Sure.
you're able to see the hubbub and
Mhm.
what really it takes place to get that meal out. We do have congregate service, and a couple of you have been to meals at the senior center. We rent the dining room at the
Yep.
senior center. It's confusing because there's Meals on Wheels that's also operated out of the senior center that is a city project. And so, but they do only delivery, and they do dietary specific, where we now are required to do diabetic specific, but also don't do any other diet specific needs. We will puree, and we will, you know, do as much as we can to meet needs, but as far as chewing goes, and swallowing, but we don't do diet-specific heart health, low sodium, things like that. I mean,
Sure.
that's just generalized, but it is very confusing because the senior center operates Meals on Wheels, and so everybody's like, how is that?
And you work very well cooperatively with them.
Yes, Yeah, it's great to work with. We've had, I heard somebody mention the tariffs and things like that. The tariffs have been terrible on containers for us, getting containers in to use. And to use anything that's made in the U.S. is not cost prohibitive for our program. So we've been extremely challenged because we've had to change, but you need a machine to use the containers to package the food in. And they need to be able to maintain an ambient temperature of a certain degree for a length of time through the delivery process according to the state's Department of Health standards. And so the product made here isn't necessarily meeting all those standards. So there's been a lot of challenges with the tariffs and things like that. But we're working through it and figuring it out. But yes, I would love to have you come. So if we could collaborate a time where we're all together so that you could see it and we could explain it and then we could go down and eat, that would be wonderful. But we can discuss that through you. If I threw a couple dates out, would you share that and then?
You bet.
Okay.
Probably like in a month or 6 weeks when
Wonderful.
we're done with budget process, and then just
Exactly.
do it on a Tuesday.
Yeah, okay, wonderful.
Very good.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
Mark.
much.
Well, thank you for
Yes.
being here.
Yeah, thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Appreciate what you do.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, next up, Rachel Kipley, Fairgrounds Parks Manager. Morning, Rachel.
Hey guys, how we doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Morning. You're late.
My bad.
I just started doing that, so.
I think we have a couple of guests that are, maybe called in. Should be Fran Romeo and Andrew,
Can they raise their hand on there?
and Andrew Fortin, president of SDLI.
Fran or Andrew, are you out there on the line?
And they have the link, but I don't know how you unmute. Is caller 110?
That's us.
Okay. Are you able to unmute them all? Okay.
They should be able to unmute themselves too.
And if they can, I can call them too, if that's easier.
You're gonna loop them in here?
Yeah, I can call them. Actually, I don't look at the numbers here. Apologize. Do you want to call them on here so you guys can hear us? Andrew is.
Does that work in, or do we lose all this?
This is already,
We can- Okay.
we can.
So call them out, though. Sure.
If that works.
We roughly scheduled 9:30, so we can just turn on.
Do you want me to do my other two things in case they pop on?
Yeah.
What do you gonna start with that one?
Second thing was the tent rental contract, so you'll see, I think we're at 18.8. The reason it went up is we are adding that one to the west of the clubhouse. That used to be, hockey. So, pass through Fair Board and recommend your approval.
Second. Motion by Weiss, second by Denner, to approve the tent rental contract. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And then your, promo list should have been in the packet. Was there any questions on that? So we do 2 rounds of that. We're still finalizing some contracts that haven't been signed, so you might have seen in the yellow, there's some that are not approved yet from Fair Board, but would recommend your approval on that.
Lots of relationships.
Man, it is.
Oh.
Yep. Second. Motion by Weiss, second by Dinger. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Okay, I think the rest is under consent calendar, so let's go ahead and call them then. Unless you guys have questions for me. Went on sale with tickets yesterday.
Good?
Yeah.
Construction on the new building's coming along.
Yeah, it's looking really good.
A little
Yeah.
busy on the fringes, but we'll take the reins.
Catching attention too.
Boys got their boots on.
wet as Fair Week last year.
A fair without a rain date.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Love it. What are we gonna do if it rains? You're gonna get wet.
It's gonna be muddy, the park's muddy, yeah.
You
Supposed to be.
gotta give all these young boys a chance to get their pickups dirty.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't be there without it.
Flip-flops sticking in my head.
Hey, Andrew, it's Rachel at Brown County. Can you hear me okay?
All
Okay.
good.
I can. Hang tight one sec, I'm gonna loop Fran in. Thank you.
I had somebody one time say, I got mud in my camper. Oh, you're welcome.
Welcome to the fair.
Now you know you were there.
Yeah. Gotta get a rug.
Hey, can you hear me okay? I've got Andrew, and I'm gonna merge the call, and then I'll put you on speaker. You'll be live in open session with the Brown County Commission. All right, one moment.
Ross.
Andrew, can you hear me?
Ross is good.
Okay, Fran, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Andrew Fortin is president of Nesty Live, and Fran Romeo is head of Fran Romeo Agency. They've been doing our booking lately. So do you guys want to start by just telling the county commission a little bit about your changes going on in your world as far as the setup of the businesses?
Sure, go ahead.
Fran, you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, first, thanks to everyone for taking some time. Appreciate everyone being available for this quick call. You know, as Rachel said, I'm president of Nesty Live. We're talent buyers in the fair space, as you know, as well as country festivals, corporate events, and, you know, just a number of other areas. We have worked with Fran Romeo for, gosh, Fran, what has it been?
Going on 4 years. It's 3, but 3 to 4
years in, you know, an official capacity, but you know, I mean, Fran, how long have you known Gil? 30 plus years?
Yeah, 40 years.
Yeah. So, you know, Nesty Live in 2019 sold a majority stake to Live Nation, and in early 25, a few months ago, Live Nation bought the remaining 49% of Nesty Live. So we are now a wholly owned subsidiary of Live Nation. Fran was a contractor of sorts with Nesty Live, long-time friend of the family. We routed fairs together for decades. And Fran joined Nesty some 4 years ago as a contractor, whereby we really just helped each other out. You know, we lent some administrative support. We would route a number of our fair clients together, as well as some festivals. And really it was just a way for everyone to kind of be better at what we do. You know, once Live Nation purchased the remaining portion of Nesty Live, you know, Fran had, you know, spent the last 4 years building up her business, and we all got around the table and just said, hey, look, this has been great, but what's best for you? What's best for the company? What should we do here? And a decision was made by all, a mutual and amicable decision was made, that Fran would spin out the Fran Romeo Agency, and it would be, you know, her own business. There would no longer be a contractor agreement. So with that came a number of reassignments. You know, there were Fran Romeo clients that we had put on Nesty Live paper, and in an effort to kind of clean everything up and make sure that, you know, everything was siloed appropriately, Fran and I got together and just said, who are the Fran Romeo clients that are on Nesty Live paper, contracts, service agreements, RFPs, so on and so forth, and how do we shift these over to Fran Romeo paper? And Brown County was one of those. And so what we're seeking to do is really transfer, reassign the contract from Nesty Live over to Fran Romeo. And, you know, in doing that, everything lives truly where it should live, and there's no, complications, confusion as to who's legal reviewing something, who's the point person, who's truly responsible for the client here, which brings us to today's call. Fran, do you have anything to add? Or?
No, I think you kind of summed up everything. Obviously, guys, which, we have been, Fran Romeo is the point guard for Brown County Fair, so Rachel and Lisa work closely together. So, nothing would change there. It would purely just be a reassignment, so your contract would stay the same. It would just be switched over to Fran Romeo Agency.
And point of clarity, in September of 2023, when you guys went into, we RFP'd it, I think we had 4 or 5 options to go with. They were chosen by the fair board, they were recommended to you, we did enter the contract, so we've been through 1 fair with 2 to go, including the one this year. And Fran Romeo was the signature on that contract when she was with Nestle Live. So I'm comfortable that nothing's gonna change. We have a really good relationship with the Romeos, and they did have the best deal when we RFP'd it. The concern is through state's attorney and stuff that we just take care of Brown County, that there's no animosity with Live Nation, which it doesn't appear that there would be because they're so big. But that's what I think Ross wants to make sure that Brown County is taken care of in the contract.
Yeah, understood, and no animosity whatsoever. Fran is still very much a friend of the family. We are doing everything that we did a year ago today. The only difference is Fran Romeo Agency is its own company ran by Fran, as opposed to that work being done under the banner of Nestle Live. But all things amicable, and no animosity whatsoever from the Live Nation perspective, from Nestle Live, or towards Brown County, towards Fran. We're all good.
So I guess my biggest,
This is Commissioner Weiss, just from my perspective, and I've seen these kind of things before, basically, just an overview is it's form following function. There just happens to be a lot of legalese that goes together with it in order to keep it all kosher.
Yep, understood.
and my concern is being 7 weeks out from the fair, we need to get those addendums that are in there signed and kind of move on, but I want to take care of, obviously, the county, make sure that Ross's concerns are addressed, so he had mentioned maybe an indemnification clause added to the contract. I don't know if he wants to speak on behalf of that, or what your guys' thoughts are to...
Ross, do you want to offer us anything?
I don't know if this is the appropriate forum for that.
Okay.
If you guys want to go into exec,
Okay.
and we can talk about it,
Okay.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay, do you guys have any other questions for the history, or?
I don't think at this point.
No, let us visit with our legal counsel here to see what concerns they may have, and then we'll be back in touch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you a call later. Yep, I'll give you a call later today. Thanks for the time, guys.
Perfect. All right, guys, thank you for your time.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Let's do it now and get it done. Motion to go into exec for this purpose.
All right, motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Denner to go into executive session to discuss contract. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Doesn't matter.
All right,
Leave it
the
alone.
light is back on. We will get reconnected here.
Hello.
your access.
Be at ease while we dial up and get reconnected, and then we'll be back in session.
Welcome back.
code you entered is invalid. You entered
Whoa.
60116
Not that easy.
0909. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or sign.
That's dear.
I feel like dog.
All right, back in session out of
Audio
exec
controls. Please enter your audio.
with no action as a result. We'll move on to the rest of our agenda. Next up is Casey Ingraham, Department of Legislative Audit.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. You want to sit in here?
Yes, please. Good morning. Welcome.
I'm Casey.
Okay.
This is Natalie.
Hi, Natalie. Hi.
We're here with DLA to do the annual audit. A couple copies of these pass around.
Double team us this year.
Yes.
Were you naughty last year?
This year's rate is at 94 for fiscal '25. That could increase at '26. I haven't heard yet, but yeah. If you have any questions for us or anywhere you would specifically want us to dig into, let us know. Otherwise,
Pretty standard procedure.
yes.
Come around every year about this time.
Yes.
Do your thing.
Yes.
Any crazy new things from Gatsby that's going on?
No, nothing new for this one that didn't happen last time.
Okay. That's unusual.
I know. I think that
Somebody's
we
got a better
implement-
idea.
Always, right?
All right.
And then I do have a questionnaire for chair, if you guys are done, if you want to swing by
Yep.
that direction, and then we can go over that. But
Okay.
Otherwise,
I'll stop back before I leave.
yeah, if you have any areas or anything you want us to look into, just let us know.
Okay?
And I will need one copy of that back signed.
Get a motion to authorize signature. Oh,
Second. Motion by Weiss, second by Dinger to authorize chair signing the Department of Legislative Audits annual plan here. Aye. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Sorry. Yeah, vote before we sign. Okay. Yeah,
This one?
multitask.
Thanks for
Thank
waiting.
you.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, first reading of the following ordinances. Let's, Lynn, read these ordinances.
All right, ordinance 299, an ordinance amending Title 4, second revision, Brown County Ordinance is amended to rezone certain described property filed by petitioners Jeff Brockel and Jacob Palmer to go from Highway Commercial District to Commercial District.
Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 299? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
Move. Second.
Motion by Dinger, second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Ordinance 300, an ordinance amending Title 4, second revision, Brown County Ordinance is amended to rezone certain described property filed by petitioners Darian and Kimberly Browning to go from Egg Preservation District to Mini Egg District.
Anyone here to speak to ordinance 300? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
Move.
Motion by Dennert, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Ordinance 301, an ordinance amending Title 4, second revision, Brown County Ordinances as amended to rezone certain described property filed by petitioner Edward Price for the Braun family, limited partnership to go from Egg Preservation District to Mini Egg District.
Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 301? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Dennert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Ordinance 302 is an amendment to the wind energy systems to the Brown County Title 4 zoning ordinance by replacing chapter 4.316 wind energy system with the proposed changes all adopted by ordinance 302 as amended in Title 4 zoning ordinance of Brown County, South Dakota.
All right, is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 302?
I'm just here to answer questions if you have.
Okay. Any questions regarding 302?
This went through, the planning commission, and then, it was postponed another month, on request for some changes. So it went through 2 reviews with the planning commission, and now it's coming through the county commission.
Okay, and this is just first reading, so.
The formality, and then if you guys want changes, or public wants changes or something, there's still first reading, second reading.
and we
You had
send it back
opportunity to
the budget.
participate in those conversations
Yes,
as well.
yeah, I was at those meetings.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. Provided input, and any heartburn or any issues?
No, there was a couple of things. The ordinance was initially proposed with some larger setbacks that might be prohibitive to the wind easement, and they've since been modified. And it's very similar to an ordinance that we've worked with in Dole County, and it's workable. It's more restrictive than what you currently have, but I still think it's good.
Okay. So you were heard and had some accommodations made? Okay, good, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think our current one
Question
is
in the back row there?
1987 or 88, I think.
All right, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Keith, did you have a question?
I just had a question, the, residences in an unincorporated city and city limit of any incorporated city being 2 miles, and then 1.5 from any lakefront residential R3 district, and everything else is 110% of the height of the service weight. Why the adjustment? Is it to protect the city boundaries? I guess I was just curious more than anything, why it was done that way.
What's that?
2 miles from incorporated city.
Yes, that's what I said, 2 miles, yep. Yeah, 2 miles, and then the 1.5 from the R3 lakefront?
Yeah.
An example.
So
of-
like Richmond Lake, Minor Lake, Elm Lake,
Okay, got it, okay, those are zone,
them are lakefront.
oh, okay.
So instead of having the wind farm on a piece of property in their backyard, a lot of them people wanted them to be further away. And we had a couple, 3 incorporated cities in Brown County that wanted the wind farms. Can they be 5 miles away is one of the comments, you know, so we don't have them right up against us because they have a lot of ag land that borders
Sure, of
city
course.
limit line. But
Everybody in South Dakota has ag land bordering their city limits.
So there's, you know, in order for them to have any future growth or any
Sure.
changes.
Understandable, I was just
Yeah.
curious kind of why the difference is, but,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine, I don't have any issue with it, I was just kind of a question.
Because it looks like it was originally from Lakefront R3, it was originally proposed at 3, and it was amended through the hearing to 1.5 miles? Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't, I don't know, Mike, I can't remember, my mind got lazy being off for a few weeks, but, wasn't the distance from city limits a little bit further? Was that 3 miles and we reduced it down?
They were
or-
2, and we discussed going.
It started at 2?
It was at 2, I don't remember it being anything different. It was at 2, and we discussed going to 1 possibly, or somewhere in between.
Okay.
Because there was, well, at least one individual that was there that wanted it closer, and we had that discussion, but the lakefront residential was at 3, and we thought that was kinda, that's a long ways. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
gonna pick them out, and then you're gonna allow them to be 2 miles from the city and 3 miles from lakefront residential is kinda, you're just kinda throwing darts at a board kind of at that point,
That
so.
was kind
We
of
were
the
trying to
purpose
clean,
of my
and,
question.
yeah, clean that up a little better,
Yeah.
or whatever, but, still landed on, I mean, I guess we all kind of felt 2 miles was, 'cause, I mean, this isn't, I know that you guys have a project right now, but this isn't an ordinance just for your project. This is for all projects that could happen in Brown County. So, I mean, if somebody, you know, you gotta think about Aberdeen also, you know, not just, you know, this one's going by Frederick, but, and not that you'd ever have one right around the city, but, I mean, how far do you want it from Aberdeen also, not to, you know,
And
so.
future growth.
And for, yeah, exactly.
Totally
So,
understand.
that's kind of why we landed on 2. It wasn't just for Frederick or something like that, so.
Well, and since the Big Stone Power Line has come in, the grid has changed for, like a wind farm and solar and stuff, that they could come into Brown County and have a place to sell the power.
Access to the grid, yep.
Where for years, we didn't really have,
Right.
you know, much, like these other counties do,
Right.
so.
There were times that we were lucky to get electricity in Aberdeen.
So you're comfortable with the 4 times the height distance away from non-participating structures?
It's a lot, but we've done it, so,
It's workable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta.
Just gonna tell you loves it.
Right.
He's comfortably uncomfortable, that's what it is right now.
You have to strike a balance.
Just don't double it again.
You have to
Right,
strike a
right.
balance between, you know, the developer and the homeowner, so.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's on, like if they're going to lease land and it's on that owner's land, they can still sign a waiver. to
Right,
close
yeah,
it.
yep, I see
But
that.
you gotta watch the neighboring properties.
That makes sense, that it still allows the property owner to, you know, waive that and allow it to be closer, if that's what they want, but if you're non-participating, then you still have, you know, some rights to keep it a little farther back too, so.
And I see there was an accommodation made in section 14 to actually administratively extend the time that for building. Sometimes it takes a little longer and stuff, so a little give and take, so.
All right.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Weiss, second by Dinger to approve ordinance 302. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance 303, an ordinance amending, actually adding data center to be added to Brown County Title IV zoning ordinance of Brown County, Chapter 4.01, definitions, Chapter 4.16, Highway Industrial District, in addition to Title IV zoning ordinances of Brown County with Chapter 4.38, data centers, all adopted by ordinance 303, as amended in Title IV zoning ordinance of Brown County, South Dakota.
Data centers are kind of a big deal, literally and figuratively. Anyone here to speak to ordinance 303?
I have a few questions.
Yes.
Keith Johnson, I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself in the last one. Under the permitting section, it says the data centers may only be permitted in heavy industrial and agricultural preservation districts. Is that how limiting is that as far as location? Is there a lot of heavy industrial? Because I doubt there is. But as far as the ag preservation, is that just general ag outside of mini ag? Okay, so it's general ag, okay. Because it said preservation, I was like, well, maybe this is like a very narrow
Just
focus.
bigger than 40, no, just bigger than 40.
Bigger than 40,
Is
that's fine, yeah, no big deal on
AgP
that.
is just kind of, that's what covers every.
Okay, I wasn't sure what the preservation piece was, I was like, because I knew heavy industrial, there's not a whole lot in the county. That's why I was like, well, this could be a very limiting factor here then. And then, down where it says noise reduction, noise reduction walls, all electrical generators shall be enclosed behind a solid wall made of concrete or other equivalent, blah, blah, blah. Minimum 4 feet higher than the highest point on the generator. We're talking about the outer building structure at this point. You're not saying there needs to be another wall outside the generator does not necessarily equal the building. Is that what we're saying? If the generator's inside the building, and the building needs to be at least 4 feet higher than the generator? Because I'm having a little confusion, because if you build the building, so if you build a building, and that is the generator, this ordinance reads that I need to make a 4-foot wall, a wall that's 4 foot higher than it, all the way around it, disassociated with the building.
Is that the intent?
So your whole building is from wall to wall to wall
Building
is a
itself would be
generator?
the wall.
That's what I'm asking. Are you guys saying
Is that how they build them?
I don't know the answer, I'm just asking, I just thought it kind of read weird. That's all.
Are you saying, would you have to build a shell around the building?
Correct.
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
No,
That's
no,
not what's
no,
intended.
The intent of that is the building would be, but if we're talking, that was more, I mean, if you got a building here and you're gonna set your generator outside over here, you're gonna have to have something for that, you know, if it's not in the building, you know what I mean?
Sound deadening.
Yeah, so if you got your generator separate from the building out, and I know that this is more like what you'd see on other locations, right, but you gotta have something around that generator. If it's in the building, it's in the building. I mean,
Okay,
you know what I mean,
that's
it's
what I was
not,
just making sure.
that's what that was supposed to be more for, if it's separate from the building. If
I'm
it's in
thinking
the
of-
building, you already got the building.
So I was like,
It's sound
okay.
deadening.
Totally understand that, okay.
Yep.
I was just thinking,
You have to do both.
really,
Yeah.
You're gonna require a wall for
yeah, that's what I was
outside
like,
the
this doesn't
building.
make any sense, why would we build a wall around the building, then it's, okay,
Yeah.
and then it's asking for fencing, I'm like, what's the purpose of the fence? You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense
Building
to me, and then the other part, it says, separation for sensitive properties, they should set back at least 1 mile from all single-family, multifamily, schools, churches, synagogues, other things, measured from the nearest property line of any of them. But then, under noise, it says, all proposed data centers that are within 1/4 of a mile of a residence, church, school shall submit a noise mitigation. But you're saying they can't be within a mile, but
Well-
it says this is a 1/4 mile.
But they could sign a waiver with the company.
You're saying that.
Depends on the layout and everything, waivers come into play, just like wind and solar.
So the homeowner could
Yeah.
sign a waiver,
Yeah.
to be
And allow it to be closer.
Where is,
But if it's more than a mile, it's already accepted here by the regulations. If it's
What is-
closer than
what
that,
is the
you need to get a
concern
waiver.
now?
I'm
Get a waiver.
just saying that I think that, I'm trying to figure out, where's the waiver section?
So you're, this is setback area.
Yep.
And what is that?
This says noise.
Okay, so that's in the sound,
Yep. But I'm saying that they don't jive.
okay?
That's what I'm saying, it says,
Thank you.
the centers should be at least 1 mile behind, or outside of it, and then it says all the centers that are within
Do it.
1/4 of a mile shall submit
All better
a
now.
noise mitigation plan.
Okay.
Now, you said you could sign a waiver, but
I'll look into that.
I'm not seeing a waiver. Like, there's not a process for the waiver.
Waiver process.
And that's why I was like,
That's not noted on the data center part, the waivers?
I don't see anything.
Okay.
So that's,
I'll look into that.
that's why I was like, okay. They don't match, is what, in my mind.
Sure,
You know,
that
it's
makes
like, is
sense.
it a 1/4 or is it 1?
Right.
And I don't care, I just need to know, what,
It should specifically say, if a waiver is signed, then
Then
this
they still
will
have to
apply.
follow
Right,
these
should be a
rules.
waiver.
Right.
Yes,
portion in there.
that would be the way that I would look at it. And then,
That's what any
the last question I
any
had,
ordinance
it says, as far as the noise mitigation, it says between 10 PM and 7 AM, it's 45 decibels, and between the rest of the time, it's 55 decibels. Well, at the data center, I don't think they change how they run, they're always, it's probably
running.
very stable noise.
Right.
I would pick one and go with it, is what I would do. Because dealing with, we built a wind farm, years ago, but as long as I know what the decibels need to be at the outside structure, I can engineer to that. But if it moves, you're just going to the low one anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's no reason for that. That's my opinion.
Well, I
You're not
think
gonna throw the doors open during the day and then the sound gets out a little bit more. I mean, that's not how that works.
Right.
Obviously, it's a clean environment, so.
But they might ramp it up during the day when there's more usage. Obviously, there'd be more noise.
It's possible,
And
yeah.
at night, they can turn stuff down or whatever as far as maybe they need maintenance and so forth.
They're probably gonna
And I
engineer
think
to
that's-
the lowest number no matter what, just because.
Possibly, and that's the intent of that thing is, if they increased 100% productivity during the day versus maybe they're doing 75% at night or something.
I understand. But I guess I know how the engineers think. They're just gonna go to 45. And to me, that's.
Yep, and that'd be fine.
So I just thought that was kind of a strange thing to add in there, that it was different times of day. I get it, I understand what you're saying. If people are awake, it's okay to be louder. But in reality, how do you turn the dial?
Right.
It's just processors running at data centers.
Sure.
That's all I had. Nothing, but the one setback thing I just was very
Yep.
confused about.
And that might be just an oversight too.
It could be.
I'll look into that.
But it calls it out to 5 feet in the
Yeah.
1/4 mile, but doesn't say it in the 1 mile, so I'm like,
Well, I'd have to go back specifically, but don't we have a place in general that, there, for setbacks, there are exceptions if the landowner agrees to them, regardless of which section it is?
The data center is kind of a section on its own,
Okay.
kind of like CAPOs are,
Yep.
so. like
I don't know,
in
I don't know if
the
there's a
ag-
specific provision in there for exceptions, but.
In the
same thing.
agricultural, you go into special exceptions, they're allowed and approved by zoning board, so then we would go to the whole data center section.
Right.
For them rules, rather than having setbacks and stuff separately throughout the ordinance. And we do that with CAPOs and wind farms.
Right. So
And
is it in,
solar.
so is it in general for all of those different sections, or is it specifically spelled out redundantly for each one of them?
This would be specific to the data center.
But it's the same process. If you're a landowner and you're willing to sign an exception for the setback.
And then if the developer is doing data center, solar, or wind, they would be getting all of their easements or purchases, you know, up front,
Right.
coming to the board, and then they would be going through that, and we would do it as one project and not each landowner having to do it.
Right.
You know, so, like on the Big Stone Power Line, I had 500 certified letters that had to go out, you know, for notifying all the people within the path of the transmission line and stuff. So we'll have that on these too.
Okay, any other discussion, any further discussion on that topic? Now I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 303. Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. Any further discussion?
And you're gonna report back to
Yeah.
us before the next one on that? then
And if we need to make a change, we'll do it for the second reading.
Okay,
Sounds good.
you good?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate your questions and
Appreciate it.
concerns.
No problem.
Have a good day.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being patient with us.
Thank you.
Can you guys tell me what the request was for the senior,
I think it was $6,000, $7,000.
I was just thinking about other grants in my head.
So you wanna match that, or?
Not personally, but, I'm gonna swing some cash out of somewhere.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heath.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Next up, approve fireworks permit and authorize chairman to sign for Motorsports LLC doing business at Brown County Speedway.
Oh.
Motion by Weiss, second by Dinger, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries. Next up, consent calendar, Lynn.
Approval of the general meeting minutes for June 10th.
Move. Second.
Motion by Dinger, second by Weiss, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries. Sorry, Denner. Heard it from over here. And your voices sound similar, so.
Claims and payroll.
Move.
Second motion by Gage. I did.
Over there.
Second by Dinger.
Over
All in
there.
favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion
We gotta
carries.
coordinate that here.
HR report.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Dinger, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries.
Claim assignment.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Dennert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries.
Lottery permit.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries.
Travel request.
Move. Second.
Motion by Dinger, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries.
Approve and authorize advertising of the RFP for the padded cell at the jail.
Move. Question. Go ahead. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss.
Ross?
Discussion?
We don't have a clause in there, and I have a question for that particular type of construction. Do we want an RFP or an RFQ? Are we required, there's no provision in that request for our ability to be able to deny or reject? Shouldn't we have that language in that? I meant to ask this question yesterday and I didn't get around to it.
That'll be in the part that I write up
Okay.
for the cover page.
The commission has the right to reject any and all
Yes.
bids.
Yep.
Okay.
I guess I didn't review the padded cell.
It's pretty detailed, which is fine,
You'll put that language in there then?
Yes.
but there's, so as long as we have that language, I guess it doesn't make much difference, but there's a difference between an RFP and an RFQ. And there's statutory requirements for
Yeah,
some
these are
things.
basically everything that he wants, line for it, and then
What's the P and Q?
Request for
Proposal or
proposal.
quote.
Okay,
And there are certain statutory things that we have to, by state law, proposal. And there are others that, for lack of a better word, are considered to have some potential for professional service consideration, where you're getting quotes, but there are other factors that you take into account.
so that's an RFQ?
Right,
Oh,
request for a quote.
okay.
And so, all right, but as long as that language is gonna be included in the cover letter, so we have that out. I'm trying to complicate things and stuff, but just, okay. All right, I second it, it's good.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. Lease agreement.
Move.
Motion by Weiss, second by Dennert. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Set hearing date and authorize advertising for temporary alcohol permit for the Boys and Girls Club.
Moved.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any other business come before the Brown County Commission this morning? We've had a request to go into executive session for personnel. And do you have anything?
Move.
Yeah.
That's right.
Legal also?
Second.
Motion by Weiss, second by Denner. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are back in exec. All right, we're back in session out of exec with no action as a result. Is there any other business come before the commission this morning?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mike, did you need to, okay.
Budget.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.